Hey everyone, and welcome to the Zoom edition of Match Factory Editions. And today we're launching Kevin Risner's book, It's Easy to Lose Your Breath. And this was Kevin's idea, uh, and it just shows the collaboration that happens behind the scenes in our little press. And he invited Kathie and Carma to join him. Both Kathie and Carma have books out this year for Match Factory Edition, so it's perfect. And so I'll introduce all three of our readers in the order of appearance, and then we'll just kind of dive into their words and after first Kathy and then Karma and then Kevin are done reading, we're going to open it up to questions and answers, a little discussion. All right. So first, we're going to hear from Kathie-Louise Clarke, who is a British-raised writer, artist, and counseling psychology MA student. She is inspired to create pieces that interrogate and illuminate the human condition with a focus on love, loss, and the beauty of the natural world. Since moving to California over a decade ago, Kathie-Louise has served in numerous volunteer capacities, taught herself printmaking, started a business selling her artwork, taught printmaking classes, and returned to writing. She is part of the Chapbook Chamber Collective, a small group of poets who work collaboratively to support one another, and has been a regular host of weekly virtual Poetry Connected meetings, also known as Monday Night Poetry Lounge on Meetup. Her poetry appears or is forthcoming in Seaside Gothic, the Brussels Review, the Orchards Poetry Journal, the Orange and Bee, and her collection that came out with Match Factory Edition in another form was shortlisted for the Longleaf Press Poetry Book Prize. But now we all know and love it as The Scarlet Peach is the Sweetest. After Kathie, we're going to hear from Karma. Karma Lynn Park is a Chicago-based writer, poet, and photographer. Her mother passed on a love of writing, and her father gave her a taste for fantasy and science fiction. She fondly remembers sitting on the cold linoleum floor on the back porch, surrounded by cardboard boxes of fantasy and science fiction magazines. You can read Through the Bronze Mirror out now from Match Factory Editions, a collection of speculative fiction in verse and prose form. So short stories, poems, she does it all. And you can read more of Karma's work and see her photographs on her website, karmalynnpark.com. We can put it in the chat. And the most recent poetry collection that we released is It's Easy to Lose Your Breath by Kevin A. Risner, and we're celebrating especially him today. He's also the author of several other titles. My Ear is a Sieve, Do Us a Favor. You thought this was just going to be about Cleveland, didn't you? Also, There's No Future Where We Don't Have Fire is coming out next year from Unsolicited Press. Kevin is a product of Ohio and has lived there most of his life, except for brief stints in England and Turkey. You can find him hiking on the trails with his wife. Shout out to the wife if she's here, lounging around with a book, or hoping amongst hopes that one of his sports teams from Cleveland might someday win another championship to prove that 2016 was no mere fluke. All right, so let's welcome Kathie. I'm curious if Robbie wants to say a few words how she and Kathie know each other, because that's how Kathie found us. She first found Robin probably before we even started the press. Oh, you're muted. Here we go.
Okay. I've known Kathie for a bit now. We actually met in the Chapbook Chamber Collective, the small group of poets. And they are also well represented tonight. So hello, everyone. And I also want to add that Kathie is working on her practicum in counseling psychology with middle schoolers, and that's going to be starting in fall. And I want to wish her luck with that. So good luck, Kathy.
Thank you.
Amazing.
So
Kathy, take
everyone,
it away.
take it away.
Okay. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Oh, I just turned myself off. I know it's customary to have a theme and to like gently flow poetically from one poem to another, but today I was feeling more like laying out a buffet for you and taking a sample from each of like the kind of the themes and the dishes of my poems. So the first three poems are from my collection. The Scarred Peach is the sweetest. And then the last few are from a new collection that I'm working on. Got 45 maybe poems called What the Jackalope Sees currently. Again, that might change as this book changed too. So I don't know about the other writers here, but I'm always more kind of excited by my current voice and my current work. But I wanted to share a kind of smorgasbord of the types of poems that I'm using to see the world at the moment, the themes that are popping up for me. So I'm going to start with When We Are Dust. When we are dust, take that speck of dust there on the glass patio table. That speck of dust belonged once to the heavens, to the infinite stars above our drip-dried souls, to the trees and the very earth that holds us, binds us, one to the other. Specks of humanity loosened as we wring our hands at the pain of it all. But when we are dust, and the trees still bear sentinel witness to the stars above, we will have belonged. That is the hope of it all. And then the next poem from from the Scarred Peach is the Sweetest, which I got my one copy that I kept for myself. It's all battered, but I feel like that's, gives it character. It's called Disparity Couplets, and I was lucky enough to have this published in multiple places, the Brussels Review, Rough Diamond, and then in this collection. Disparity Couplets. When an animal consumes its mate, we marvel at nature. But a woman must not demand too much of her lover. At that we sigh and label the partner's entrapment desperate. We are duplicitous with ourselves. Take the hard-shelled beetle, so black she is mirrored blue. Her beauty shines dark and glorious, recognizable throughout all insects as rare majesty. But a dark-skinned woman is sold, and sold again. Potions and elixirs to conform her brow to paler tones, to tame her to a ghost. So many creatures are adored in their voluptuous clothes of winter, plump fur, curved breast, rolled neck. They demand soft caresses and longing eyes where their human sisters would willingly wrap bone-thin arms around them for warmth, or drape them across razor-blade shoulders for elegance and plush youth. The russet vixen with her steely gaze moves daintily across the snow, her auburn glow a warning that she accepts the wariest praise. But only the bravest of men have seen the same beauty in women, painting tumbled ruby curls and luminous skin, the models cursed as witches, bad luck, unnatural bodies of a dark force, a blame for lust. And the final poem from this collection is Fly Free, which is the eponymous poem, I suppose, but it has the line. Fly Free. Sometimes flood uncovers treasure buried in ancient silt. Rage-filled tears lift years of burden, and the cuckoo stills nests to warm abandoned eggs. Careless words sometimes open hearts with careful apology. Tired warriors lay their weapons aside, and the scarred peach is the sweetest of the whole summer. Sometimes joy finds the broken, and the failing are blessed with success, and the persecuted fly free. And now moving on to what is currently What the Jackalope Sees. And the first poem I want to share is one called Red Dog. There is a red dog on my shoulder. Out the corner of my eye, I see him yawn. Everyone knows about his cousin, the black dog. He lies low and heavy across legs, the owners unable to rise from bed or make a grocery list. But the red dog, my red dog, the colour of hot stewed plums, fizzles. He yips and clamours. Occasionally he darts off to the bushes, scenting his indolent cousin and his dark lethargy. But mostly he rides high and demands a pace like a child on a piggyback ride. Faster, faster, now jump, now spin. And I just want to put him down, make a sweet blanket spot for him by a fire or under the dapple of an English oak, one hand on my heart, the other on his head. Slightly different feel. Tea ceremony. This one's just actually been, it's going to be published very soon in the Orchards Review. We make a claim on morning tea as soon as we graduate from warm milk at bedtime. And now here we are, you with the pot, me porcelain cup proffered for your spill. Tears could mingle with bitter leaves or accent fragrant steam, and still we talk. How he kissed her as if the night would last forever, or as swiftly as a swallow dips into a stream. I sip Assam, and you draw in Darjeeling through pursed lips, better to aerate the brew. We sit witches at the cauldron, waiting for thumbs to prick and cats to needle stockings. Let them worry at the edges, stand and guess our purpose. Once we were the beauty in the room. Now we are rain-battered, tea-stained, and cloaked in age, invisible, but not irrelevant. That is to say, we enjoy ceremony where there is purpose, and it takes courage to be ordinary. I chose this poem because I think it speaks quite nicely, Kevin, I hope you'll be in agreement with this, to one of Kevin's poems in his collection, which is his Zoom Cards Against Humanity. And I feel like this kind of is in conversation with it. It's called Held in Human Hands. This is the century we chose to become less human. The years we fretted over filters for Zoom calls and outfit of the day photos, worked to AI voice commands. Ate up clean counter content delivered in 30-second packages. Bought probiotics and prebiotics, powders, potions and pills. We weighed protein and drank butter in coffee. Sometimes I think about my grandparents. They were bombed, threadbare, scared but joyful. All so we could spiral towards our own navels. What would they think of the conveniences we disregard, the abundance we shun for 3-day detoxes, the landfills of plastic trinkets that future archaeologists will uncover and use to create a narrative about our gods? We cast out the poor, the sick of mind and body, and curse at their pavement homes. We drive Jetson-inspired cars, fly through the skies at the expense of the birds, the rainforests, the oceans. Wars are waged over ancient lands with ticker tape, waved fists in the air in lieu of fictitious tariffs. We wake to disaster and forget to hold out our human hands. And then my last poem is kind of the reason that I share my work at all, which I don't know. I enjoy doing it, but I feel like this is a sense of purpose for me, and that there's no expectation of perfection or form or construction or any of those things that come with some other like poetry communities that I am intimidated by. But I still want to share to hope that it connects with someone. And this poem's called Connect. E.M. Forster suggested only connect, and I commit to trying. Poetry isn't the only form, but the one I choose to be true. Instead of writing to gather garnets and pearls, publication and praise, I will write connections, be part of the conversation, and add as much as I take from the craft. Make art with foundations and finials, paint walls in rainbow flowers, hide trinkets in wild foliage for the curious to discover.
Thank you, Kathy. All right. That was incredible. And yeah, I agree that poem from your upcoming collection and Kevin's book really resonate. Ah, love it. I always I always feel like Kathie, especially your poetry, has this. I think at first, if someone looks at a poem by Kathie, they're like, "Oh, this is, it's beauty, it's love, it's joy." But there's always something undercutting it, something kind of darker and angrier underneath everything. I love it. We're gonna hear from Karma next, and since I asked Robin to tell us about how she met Kathie, this is again just a little bit of a peek in behind the scenes. You know, we started this press as two friends, and uh, for the first time, it's not like we were going around with this huge portfolio of people we could uh, tap to provide manuscripts to us. We also wanted to keep it simple. And anyway, I met Karma a long time ago, probably about 13 years ago now. And and she's a woman of few words, and I'm a woman who speculates based on whatever words I do get. So so for months I walked around thinking that Karma was a ballerina, and it turned out she wasn't, but she kind of is now. I mean, she's been dancing for a long time. And so that was like at the very beginning of like I said, when we first met 13 years ago, and I was dissuaded from that maybe a couple of months into it. And then maybe a year ago, a little over a year ago now, I asked Karma if she had a collection ready for Match Factory Editions, a collection of poetry, because I've been a fan of her poetry for a long time. And then she said, "No, but how about a collection of sh science fiction and fantasy short stories?" And that was the first time I heard that Karma was also writing fiction and speculative fiction. So it took me like over a decade later, Karma gives me that tidbit. And so that's how that happened. But without further ado, let's hear Karma. Whatever she prepared, who knows? It might be like a scientific paper.
Oh, that would be fun. No, I took poems from my book, Through the Bronze Mirror, and I'm so grateful to Snasia and Robin for accepting my manuscript and turning it into a book. And I'm just really happy to be here with Kathie and Kevin. It's great to have this tri-coastal reading going on. So yeah, my poems tonight are going to have a little theme of speculative fiction, sort of mythic, sort of fairy tale. The first one is more mythic. Sky Man, Earth Woman. Sky Man, half blue, half black, shining skin, cloud pale eyes, fingers arching like rainbows. Earth Woman, opening her womb to the rain, belly round as the moon, soles of her feet furry with roots. All of us, fur people, people who open and close their shells, the ones who wear scaled armor shining on the outside, people who unzip a ghost skin to emerge clean and bright, those who hang by their feet to sleep, people who wiggle boneless fingers in the tides, naked skin people. We are all of us, their children. And the next one is water, light, cormorant. The cormorant is a type of bird. It swims through the water to catch fish. Water, light, cormorant. It pulls itself up onto a log, raises its beak, stretches out its wings, asking to be sent tender fish, giving thanks for sun on feathers, praying to the river god. And this is Crow Eats Carrion. It's a love poem. Crow's wife turns up her nose and turns her back. You born in a barn? He brings her the wishbone of a wren. Here, sweetie, we'll make a wish, never to be parted. Oh, you. She strokes the feathers on top of his head. When Crow eats carrion, he takes in that animal, the light step of the deer, the trembling of the rabbit, the fish smoothed and smoothed by water. He thinks he is God. He stuffs himself. His stomach hurts. He has a headache. I'll never do this again. But his wife has a cough that won't go away. One morning she has blood on her beak. One morning she doesn't wake, though Crow calls and calls. Now he knows for sure he's not God. He eyes her sleek breast, the muscle bunched in the thigh, and knows what to do. Bending his head, he begins to nibble on a wing. And Extra Vision Woman is about like the downside of having superpowers. Extra Vision Woman, eyes up and down her arms, eyes on her knees. She lifts her hands, palms open, eyes open. An eye peers beneath the hair on the back of her head. A tiny eye blinks at the tip of her tongue. Her heart is blind and tender. Sometimes she closes all her eyes so she cannot see. And we know God can take a number of forms, including a swarm of bees. God as a swarm of bees, a dark, shrieking cloud, burning your skin with stings, sticky gold packed into waxy combs. You pull off pieces and eat. Anger and sweetness, the taste of honey, those stings of fire. And the next one was inspired by fairy tales. Risk. You can try hiding in the hut with the cold fireplace and empty table. Sometimes you have to leave the path and let the crows eat the breadcrumbs. You have to risk the witches. And this was inspired by a mannequin on a balcony in New Orleans, just stuck up there looking around. It's Juliet. You can see the mileage on my skin, my head bald as the day I was made, eyeless, armless. I know Romeo is not going to stand below and praise the brightness of my eyes, call me the sun, maybe the moon with her pale, scarred face. Still, the day is warm, and I can watch the passers-by, strolling on two legs, gesturing with two hands, men glancing at women and their two soft breasts, eating, talking, laughing, kissing. And my last one is a coin for the ferryman. In Greek mythology, the souls of the dead are ferried across a river to the afterworld, and but they have to pay the ferryman a toll, typically a small coin. A coin for the ferryman. I think it is the end, but it opens. I think it is my own blood, but it is a river of light. I think it is a bird, but it is a boat. I think it is a shadow, but it is the ferryman. When I come to the landing, I explain that I left swiftly, without warning, and did not bring a coin. He says he will accept a poem. So I stand at the bow as the boat pulls away, and speak the truest words I know. Those might be drops of river spray. Those might be tears he wipes away. Oh, thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Karma. May do my own little applause hand. Yeah. Um, among other things, I love. It's just like there's no better way. I mean, there probably is a better way of saying it, but I love how Karma writes about death. It's I don't know. It can be funny in Karma's when Karma takes a stab at it. And if you're in Chicago, come out to City News Cafe on July 12th. It'll be Karma's book release, book launch event. We'll give you all the details. It'll be in the newsletter and everything. And now we're going to hear from man of the hour, Kevin A. Risner, who is the only person that neither Robin nor I know in person. Although he's from Cleveland, and I feel like I'm a little bit from Cleveland because my brother lives there and I go there all the time and I love it. I love Cleveland. But Kevin found us through Mitch, who found us through Blue Sky. So it's all a connection among teachers and Blue Sky, radical teachers and Blue Sky. That's what I always tell people. We got some radical teachers that were on Blue Sky. All right, take it away, Kevin.
All right. Thank you. And thank you everybody for stopping by and spending time this evening or morning, depending on where you are in the world. Um, and just sitting back and listening to a few of us read some poems. I'm going to obviously read from my new collection today. I'm going to read the first poem from the actual book that you see right here. And the rest of the time, I'm probably going to read from the screen just because it's easier and you'll actually see me looking up at you as opposed to looking down, which is, yeah, just having sat in on a lot of Zoom readings in the past, it's a lot easier to do that than see and it more enjoyable than the majority of the people just looking down the whole time. So yeah, so I'll read the the book's eponymous poem first from the book, and then I'll read the rest from the screen. It's easy to lose your breath. It's easy to mishear. How often it's happened as blue light echoes solitude at 2 a.m. Ants crawl all over me, left over from the last time an apocalypse ate cities bone clean. I've deftly avoided the world for years now, and now I'm ready to fling everything against the wall. Each time I walk into a crowded place, the warring slide projectors hum, and it's 1997 again. Jumped through time like a makeshift Doctor Who, like I've borrowed a DeLorean for the evening. I am leaping through hoops, headed back. I'll be surrounded by the sea where it should never be. I shouldn't be here. I'll hold my breath and save it for when I'm snorkeling through the corals, before they bleach, before the rainbow fish dart all around me, set off, and never come back. Okay, now I'm going to move to the screen. The next, I'm going to do a few poems from the third part, then kind of backtrack and read the central diaries, and then read a few from the beginning. Just kind of how I devised this whole thing tonight. So the next poem, it was inspired by the algae blooms that happened off the coast of Lake Erie in 2014, and which caused Toledo and then other cities in Ontario to not have drinking water for a week or more. This is titled After the Start of Summer. The lake blooms a bright green, more vivid than geckos. When these blooms enter the household, it's only natural to collect them, place them in a glass vase, burn eyes with pollen. Pink and orange petals flutter onto the table. They say that algae blooms mean an overabundance of phosphorus. It's toxic. We drink up facts, reap the consequences, even when it's not our fault. I'm a wooden raft headed down the river after a heavy rain. The water's thick here. I hope to make my way out of this sand trap, through storm, into sunlight, no longer hidden by mattress stuffing clouds in the endless overcast that is November. All right, the next one I'm going to read, I'm actually going to read one from an experience I had quite a few years ago when I lived in Turkey. The title is The First Apartment I Rented. Looking skyward was inevitable. Back then, the blocks of apartments rolled with the terrain. Concrete and stone covered every inch of earth. My fear was wondering what might happen to this complex if the future Great Istanbul earthquake struck sometime in the next month. Pancaked ground floors commonplace, and, living on the story above, I blessed the armoire in my cubbyhole of a bedroom. The wardrobe would likely tilt over, but not fully. I praised how thin the room's layout was. But would the above stories succumb to gravity, crush me anyway if the Richter leapt over 8? The next thought, find out the building codes. Does Bulent have them? The only way to stay safe would be to lounge on a retrofitted balcony lined with fake grass, high enough from Sea of Marmara tsunami. An endless surge pushing ashore, engulfing the rock walls and walkways submerged at 10 feet, at the very least. What's tomorrow morning's devastation? The transport to memory, the bitter patterns on the inner edge of a coffee mug, lost granules of 2 decades ago, bringing foreseen waves, unbelievable destruction. I now sit in a house thousands of miles away and think about the next tornado outbreak here. All right. And then going to I'm going to jump to the beginning, actually, before I go to the pandemic section and read um, the poem that's already been mentioned here tonight. It's titled Zoom Cards Against Humanity. And that's, if I can find it in this document, um, inspired by um, all of the game nights that me and a group of my friends had. Um, Still do. We might be scheduling one coming up. But we started it when the pandemic started. And one of the first games we played was this online version of Cards Against Humanity, which I don't think we've done since, which is kind of funny. Anyway, the title is Zoom Cards Against Humanity. A group of us sit around, but the table isn't circular. We have options like usual, and we choose the funniest ones, the dirtiest, the most accurate, fill in the blanks to this ridiculous situation we find ourselves in. When I speak, my whole self is highlighted. Everyone sees a large enhancement of me, unkempt, insular, interior. I pop up for a few seconds. This situation has left me eating rice and beans, perhaps a new curry with 70 photos on the webpage, a novella, and the tiniest square of directions at the very end. If I'm feeling nostalgic, I'll learn beer bread. We also eat spaghetti squash during one of the game nights, and everyone on thought it was pasta. That's all we're eating during quarantine. Don a bib, wait for more. A slug of arak and some Oreos we nabbed from a store we won't name because we don't want to let the truth out. It seems almost everyone is Zooming for everything now. For work, for meetups with friends, for family check-ins, for poetry readings. To see faces, familiar, kind faces at the present, sates us, for a short while, a satisfying escape from bitter reality. All right. So this book starts out with, a collection of poems, some of which related to the pandemic, and others kind of just dealing with certain anxieties related to that. And then the central section is a collection of journal entries and sort of just thoughts going through my mind during the first year of the pandemic. And then the last section of this book explores a lot of what I'm still currently writing about, which is a lot of work related to climate change and just the current situation we're in. Any of you have been paying attention, a large swath of Europe is currently experiencing ridiculous heat, and we're going to be feeling that a little bit in a couple weeks from if the forecasts are correct. So anyway, I'm going to read this section and then close with maybe a couple more poems in the opening. So this whole second section is called The Pandemic Diaries. My dreams involve walking through doors and into buildings, suffocating. The air slinks upward. I can't go there. All I can do is look up to see the vaulted ceiling peppered with orbs that hum orange and yellow, as if I've released all the tapioca spheres from boba tea and left them to levitate for eternity. My mind is a blur as the oxygen gets depleted, as if I truly did get sick, and the most recent actions I've taken are now lost in a giant warehouse with numberless aisles. Each turn down the next one sets off alarms that release rebar from supports. It's impossible to avoid them as I go from aisle to aisle. I'm lost. I can't balance myself with all of these obstacles. I'm gasping for air, trying to surface, and I don't have the inhaler I'd relied on so heavily in high school. A former student of mine informed me during the previous Lunar New Year celebration that I would need to brace myself for my year, the year of the rat. For major life changes might occur. Marriage, a new child, death, something else just as potent. She did not say exactly what I must do to prepare, simply that I'd have to be ready for whatever would be on the horizon. In late January, a few students disappear for a week, some for 2 weeks or more. They meekly return, a few with deep chest coughs. One of them tells me he was the sickest he'd ever been in his life. He felt he was dying, thought he was actually going to die. A colleague reaches out on Facebook sometime in early February, asking whether anyone else has noticed a greater number of sick students this semester. Many people chime in with concerned yeses. My wife encounters some of her students from China coming to class in masks. It had been a normal occurrence for years, so it often wouldn't cause us to think twice. This time, we know it's different. I tell everyone in my classes at the start of March, see you after spring break. At one of the schools where I adjuncted, some students were studying abroad in Italy, and they returned sooner than anticipated. In hindsight, I wonder if I should have said that cheery phrase to my classes before the week we'd be away. The following Tuesday, our state shuts down because COVID has officially made it into Ohio, even though it had been here. All schools go completely virtual, and I never see these students in person ever again. I'm building an entire Earth in my head, and it's just like this Earth, but not really. I mean, there's a lot of sky, a blistering sun, roaring waves, swirling hurricanes in the distance, but never land falling. There's a range of unrelenting mountains, blue spruces covering the lower sections. There are chocolate Labrador retrievers bounding across sand, waves collapsing onto the shore, but then returning to the ocean. Total solar eclipses pop up every other week. Everything's perfect. My wife gives me a recipe for beer bread. She reminds me that it's easily accessible through email should I forget the necessary ingredients. I indulge in mornings full of carbs, coffee, scrolling news feeds, reading articles by Ed Young about the pandemic. Everyone wants to bake bread. Everyone wants to make hummus. Everyone wants to stockpile on toilet paper. I tell myself, if we fall into a world of even worse chaos sometime in the near future, if we do indeed find ourselves on the other side of this coronavirus, there will be no space left for hope. Our collective empathy, already microscopic, will be impossible to find on any map. If we plunge into future wars, if there grows any sort of unrest, the only way out of it is a high vertical climb, the walls coated in oil, the floor lined in spikes. I get a call from HR at the end of June. Starting the 1st of July, I have no full-time job. The call takes less than 5 minutes. I gather all of the names I can, try to save messages. I reach out to a few people, staff and faculty, old students. I tell them I'm not coming back in the fall. I don't go into detail. But maybe I'll see you around. More dreams of me indoors. I'm always indoors. I'm always wondering why I'm indoors, why I'm so close to everyone, why I'm not taking the necessary precautions, why I've completely thrown everything against the wall, why I'm just watching all of what I've thrown at the wall drip down, down, down. A masochistic form of doom scrolling. If I thought we'd be better after the first year, I was mistaken. If I thought the air would get less murky the further along in life I'd go, I didn't bank on another round of exhaust. The walls continue to rise, the sky continues to thicken, and the dreams return. They bleed into morning. They're here for me as I slink back into the unknown. And so I return to that earth I had formed in my head. I eradicate everything. The countries have borders and I get mad. Why the hell did you outline them with borders, Kevin? Well, as a child, that's all I knew. That's all I did in 6th grade. I created a continent on wide-ruled notebook paper when I should have been doing classwork. I was a savvy makeshift cartographer. Each of my classmates' names were the country's names. And then invasions happened, and the kids bordering me in class were intrigued. They wanted me to create a 5 years later map. Which countries would be gone? Which ones would still exist? Which ones would grow into empires? And then, when would those empires inevitably collapse? Okay, I've never read that whole thing out loud before. All right, I'll do a couple more to finish up. Um, I'll do a couple prose poems, some of the interactions that Mary and I had with wildlife in our house during the pandemic, and then maybe one more poem to end on a. These last three poems are a little bit lighter, so we'll end on that note, I think, which I think is the best way. So. The first poem is one of my favorites actually in the collection. Um, and that is during the first year of the pandemic, a frog snuck into the house. Our only visitor for months and months and months. We transported it to a cool, shaded location in our backyard, and it didn't take long for it to bound away and disappear. We never could tell whether the croaking we heard after dark was partly our guest. It lulled us to sleep, like a talisman in the havoc of that year. As I think about our frog visitor today, I still don't know how it got inside. But we never really know when something sneaks inside, and the surprise when we find it might be just what we need. And then the next poem, it's about a spider. And if you know if you know Mary and me, we will very often, if there is some sort of critter like that, we will actually take it outside and not smush it, which we used to do a long time ago, but we don't do that now. Title is Another Visitor. On the lowest step on the way to the basement, a spider has spun its story for months until it has to move to a spot beside the house. The ferns curling up like wildfire, a central opening for a new web. I place it there and let it be. 5 hours later, there's a scuttle in the underbrush. Home not yet built. But it always takes a while to settle in. The next day, thunder cracks and rains over an inch, pummel asphalt and trees and wires, and we never see it again. But there are no floods or standing water anywhere in that part of the yard. So I'm hoping for the best. And I'll finish up with a haiku that I wrote. Um, and it is about, when you find out, um, when I read it, it's about a sapling that I got from the nature center nearby a couple years ago, and I planted it that year, 2024, on Earth Day 2024. And about a month ago, a big storm hit, and we still have a cage around it just because we're right by a national park, and we have a lot of wildlife. And it blew off overnight. Did not know until the next morning. And in that span, all of the new leaves were munched on by some critter. So I was kind of distraught. But now, about a month and a half later, since it's been quite warm and rainy, um, we have a ton of leaves on it, so it's doing okay. So, but anyway, this poem is called Hope. A red oak sapling, now in a watering can, soon in our front yard. Thank you very much for stopping by and listening.
Thank you, Kevin. I was thinking, first of all, you read that so well, and it reminded me that one of my ambitions for our press is to release everyone's audiobooks one way
Mm,
or another. It's not it yeah. Anything could be done. It's just a matter of like logistics and time, and time is especially
mhm.
lacking sometimes. But yeah, and all I mean, same thing for Kathy and Carma. I mean, it would be great to have audiobook versions
That'd be
of these
awesome.
books out, and also for accessibility's sake, So,
Mhm.
but yeah, so um, I love how during everyone's reading, uh, I think it's mostly let me see, I have to scroll down a little bit. It's mostly Allie adding quotes as and I've witnessed that at other readings with participants from the Chapbook Chamber collective. I feel like that's something I've noticed. Is Allie also a part of that? Yeah, yeah. I love that. And it happened the last time we had the Zoom reading, a Match Factor edition Zoom reading. And I thought somehow like the settings would save the chat, but the chat didn't get saved. So this time I'm gonna, before I hang up, I'm saying that to remind myself before we end the meeting, I'm gonna copy it all because I feel like Allie's creating like a cento of everyone's patchwork, a new poem out of everyone's fragments that stick out to her. And so we'll see what happens. I'm going to do that and share it with everyone. But I wanted to open it up to questions, and anyone can participate if Kathy, Karma, Kevin have questions for one another, or people in the audience have our friends attending and family attending the reading have questions for Kevin or Kathy and Carmen. So just kind of like we'll open it up. I think let me I'm gonna do the I'm gonna switch to show non-video participants, and then I'm speaking out loud what I'm doing here. And and I want to see if I can switch to gallery so I can see. Um, we have, and this is a great problem to have, but we have more participants than I can fit one one. So I think maybe the best thing to do is to um, if someone wants to, if someone has a question or a comment, they can raise their hand, that thing in Zoom, or even just unmute and say something. And no pressure, and we can kind of just chill and process the words. Oh, I see. One of the karmas is Leilani. Hi. So we have members of Leilani's. I mean, Karma's writing group, members of Kathy's writing group, probably members of Kevin's writing group. Are you in the writing group, Kevin? How you're not? Actually,
No, but
I am
I know
curious about
I have
that.
some
Yeah,
fellow poets and also a lot of friends here, kind of
yeah.
family.
I'm
So
I'm curious about that. Like just writing solo, and just having like a completely informal network of readers versus having regular meetings with a group of writers, is that do you have a preference there, Kevin, or just that's just how
it's just how
life
it's been for
happened?
me. Yeah, I'll
Uh,
I'll sometimes reach out and share ideas with people. Or a lot of this book was, and also my last chapbook, a lot of it was formed during the pandemic. And so Mary and I were the ones kind of chatting about the words, Mary, my wife, and I. So yeah.
Kathy, you guys kept meeting probably over how long have you been meeting with your group? Um, and was
Well,
it impacted by the pandemic at all?
I'm glad Shamala's here because I don't actually keep that kind of information in my brain. I have a very immediate kind of like, oh, what are we doing? Like a goldfish. I think we've been meeting maybe for 3 years. I think it was after the pandemic.
So it's after.
Is
Okay.
that? Oh, Ali
Mhm.
says it was 2023.
So
Yeah, that
3 years.
sounds about right. We met during the pandemic because we met at Meetup,
Yeah, it's
and
only
then
it's
Mhm.
been like less than 2 years. It's quite extraordinary.
Yeah, we met at Meetup, and then Shamala kind of curated us, and now we have, if we talk about each other's work, it's it's a novelty. We're now like just really connected on all kinds of things, and we spare little um, moments for each other of inspiration. And actually, we're working on a group document of like lines that we might be able to put together, a bit like consequences was our thought of having like each person write a line and then other people respond to it. We thought that might be kind of fun to do. So we play around, but it's a good group.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I'm also always curious how long it takes to conceive of a book, get it through various versions, and then have it be okay, now it's ready to be published. I think it there's such a, I don't know, a wide range of scenarios in that regard. And we can even reading Kevin's book, you kind of get a sense that it's kind of, you get a sense of urgency, and of course like the subject matter. So we get a sense that it was written during and right after the lockdown and that kind of stuff. Is that right, or are there any older poems, Kevin, in your book?
Oh gosh, I think almost all of them are pretty
Yeah,
recent.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I think the one of the earliest ones was the Zoom Cards Against Humanity poem because I wrote that like almost like a month after we've had our first game night. So
Mhm.
yeah. So a lot of the other ones, were like a year ago or a couple years
Wow.
ago.
Yeah, yeah. I think Karma's been probably in the making the longest. Am I right about that? How long?
Oh, yeah. I have some work in there that dates back more than 10 years.
Yeah.
And then, as you know, of course, because you and Robin had to read the whole manuscript more than once, um, all of my work goes through my writing group, and I'm so appreciative. It always makes my work better. I'll go, okay, I think this is done now, and then they look at it and give feedback, and okay, it's not done. Um, so all of my work went through a number of iterations, but then when you put it all together, sometimes I found that I tended to use the same images in more than one place. I go, oh, I can't do that. Or, some characters sort of seem to pop up more than once under a different name. So it all had to be ironed out.
But critics live for that. Oh, this image reoccurs, this is
Yeah,
what
it's
the
like, can't,
author, the symbolism that was
or
meant.
just, yeah, I was lazy and I didn't come up with something. My mind ran into, the same
But a
track.
scholar would find so much depth. No, all manuscripts that we've worked with came in an awesome state, already, which is why we were like, this has to be out, but also then went through changes when it just becomes teamwork once an author agrees to entrust editors to publish their piece. I mean, it might be different for different people, but for us, it's all manuscripts have gone through these exciting phases that we sometimes I'll be like, not literally in the middle of the night, but there was one moment where I was like, oh, the Kevin's book should be called. And I was like, Kevin, how about, it's your choice, but I was like, oh, uh, each month has hold an incredible monster. That's perfect for the book. And then Kevin was like, that was the title of the book at some point, but let's keep it's easy. You're right, you're right. There's a lot of like back and forth. That's cool. But I
I
see
didn't
that
read that.
Joe.
I didn't read that poem.
I know.
That's all right. Sometime
That's
in the
okay.
future.
Yeah. The next reading, and you'll tell us in a second about your next Zoom reading. But Joe has raised his hand, so uh, let's hear from Joe.
Yes, I have a question for Kevin. Kevin, I saw that tornadoes made an appearance in one of your poems, so I would love to hear your thoughts on the poetics of weather, especially of the severe variety.
Um, so so I know Joe. And he knows that I am a weather nerd. So weather does find its way into my poems occasionally, and I'm a huge fan of anything related to weather. Um, and I have a few others. I kind of do lean a little bit more towards exploring kind of how our climate is changing and how things are getting a little bit hairier in the world because of what we're doing to it. Um, I do appreciate a lot of varying weather conditions and phenomena, and so a lot of it does indeed find its way in. It's a lot of times it has to do with the weather in Cleveland, so a lot of snow. One of the poems that I have in this book is called Sisyphus, and the focus is on shoveling the driveway, um, which is a Sisyphean task. Uh, although, well, yeah, we had a couple kind of wacky storms last year, but the past few years haven't been as bad. So this is actually an earlier poem, I think. This is one of the earlier ones. This was before pandemic. I wrote this one. If you want to go back there, but yeah, I have a lot of eclipse poems as well. I'm a nerd for all that stuff. So I have a lot of eclipse poems. Um, Many of which are going to be in the next collection I have that's out next year. And Yeah, I also have an erasure that just got published about 2 years ago, kind of coinciding with the solar eclipse that passed through kind of through Ohio. So it was kind of fun to get that one published.
All right, David, it's your turn.
Hey guys, thanks for this wonderful night. Just wanted to maybe ask all the readers tonight, maybe folks from Match Factory, what do you think the role of the poet in society nowadays is? It's pretty risky to start a new print house. So that's awesome, love that. But what do you think the view of the poet in society now is?
I'll start with just a little bit that kind of has to do with that motif in Kevin's pandemic diary section of building a new earth in one's head, and I mean that's where everything starts, the future is unwritten. We first imagine it, and then some version of it comes into being. And I think that poetry is attuned to that in a way that nothing else really is. Uh, that sort of creating something that wasn't there before. That's not meant. It is meant for the present moment, but it's meant to be able to communicate with the future as well. You know what I mean? So there is something like incredibly hopeful, even when we write like the darkest poems about death and destruction and all the chaos, the man-made chaos that we've created, and there just the act of sitting down and writing it and sharing it with others is a hopeful and hope creating, action that I think it plays that's a part of the role it plays in society.
Yeah, I think a poem is an experience. You share an experience. Um, and it can crack other people's hearts open and allow them to, as Nasia says, share in that experience with the poet. And could you maybe change people's hearts and minds? At least I'm hopeful that we can make a difference in the world.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, just the idea of forging the connections, finding a way to get people connected, and this is just one of the avenues, I think, to, you know, share one's thoughts, one's experiences, and my guess is that there are a few others that have experienced similar things to me, and who knows, in unexpected ways. It could be just, that, the joint trauma from the pandemic, or it could be something else like, someone from Toledo picking up and reading about, you know, that incident that happened in 2014. So it could be a variety of things. And I think we just need a lot more of that because forging connections, having empathy, and all of that stuff is so essential. And there are so many people and non-people that are really trying to dissuade us from having that empathy and kindness. And I think poetry is one of the ways to kind of build that.
I agree with what both of you have said, actually, what all of you have said. And I think from my perspective at the moment, where I am deep in a world of trying to work out theoretical orientations to therapy, the thing that draws me in is narrative, like helping people construct a world and a narrative about their place in that world that gives them hope. And there's a lot of ways in which you can use poetry as a therapeutic tool, and that really excites me. I think that's the place that poetry has. I don't think you need to be whatever a qualified poet is. I think everyone has it in them, and it's allowing people to construct their world through this form that helps them find their place in the world.
I just wanted to read Mary's comment in the chat. I feel like Kevin also gives agency to weather in his poems in ways that are sometimes comforting and at other times unsettling, but always moving. True. Well put, Mary. And Mary saw these poems, as we've heard about Kevin's process, in all kinds of stages. Maybe it's a good moment to plug upcoming events, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm going to have another poetry reading. Well, I'm a part of a poetry reading that will take place July 9th. It's called 100 Pictures of Honey. Um, and Donna Verrier is the person who kind of organizes these readings. She's been doing it for a while now, and I will be reading with three others on the 9th, Thursday the 9th, 7, I think it's the same time, 7:30 Eastern time, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, and that's Eastern time for anyone who is outside of that. One of the great things is that the multiple places I've read for have given multiple time zones just to for those who might not be on the Eastern zone. So, but yeah, that's the 9th.
Kathie, anything you have to plug?
No, I don't. This was a real treat for me. I have not been very good at organizing this kind of thing. So no, I'm not reading anywhere else at the moment. But I'm always excited and pleased to be part of these things. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathie. Right around this time, my spousal comrade on the other side of the wall is starting his meeting with a sketch comedy group that he's in, and they talk very loud. So if you're hearing someone in the background, a booming voice, they're practicing skits. So Carma, as we said, you have your launch on July 12th at 1:30 p.m., right? Early afternoon. We'll be there, your Chicago buddies, and I'll tape that and we'll post that on YouTube. There'll be some music, and I try to tape all of our in-person events, and I put them on YouTube, and I also share. So, for example, that one that Kevin was in last week, and the one that you'll be in July, Kevin, I'll share that on our YouTube account, Match
Awesome.
Factory Editions account. So I try to kind of congregate all the all of our appearances on YouTube under that account, one way or another. So I look forward to all of those events, and thank you all for
A question before you
attending.
go.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, hi, Brian here. Hi, I've been on the whole time, just now with the picture. Thank you, Kevin, for inviting me. And thank you, Carmen and Kathie, great readings. I enjoyed them all. The question I have is actually for the whole group, because you asked, well, what does poetry do? And I'm curious, what's the difference between poetry and a song lyric? Or how do you apply that? And you have a lot of song lyricists who is Joni Mitchell, Brandy Carlisle, Paul Simon, who in essence are reading poems, applying it to music. How would you compare the two, or how would you put the two together, if you can?
I mean, I can go first, but
Well, I want to point out
no,
this.
I am a huge proponent of kind of converging the idea of, music, lyrics, and it's its own form of poetry. I've been inspired by quite a few musical artists. Quite a few of my poems are inspired by the National. I have um, a couple other artists whose words kind of formed the poems I have in this book. Al Green, Radiohead, another band. Um, just and just so many other artists and their words have really kind of infused and actually have become, a part of my work. So yeah, a lot of I think they're inseparable almost, kind of as, one thing. I don't know what everyone else thinks, but yeah.
Yeah. Now, I want to point out that Snasia is a singer-songwriter as well and a poet. And so she she does it all.
Yeah, I'm an amateur singer-songwriter. But yeah, I agree. Song lyrics, that's a form of poetry. Um, and uh and we're all inspired by all kinds of words, it all enters our heads and then comes out through our filters. So yeah, we all have our favorites and like sometimes people point out that, oh, well, these song lyrics are so trite, that's not poetry. Well, a lot of poetry that's written to be read is also not that great. Like the quality is a little bit in the eye of the beholder and a little bit just it's you know everything runs the gamut, everything human beings create. So yeah, I'm not and especially like uh growing up with hip hop and seeing, literally a new form of poetry emerge, that's not even sung, was so exciting and influenced me as a poet. So it's all one big stew in my head and in my life.
Well, I'll bring up one thing. I work a lot in music, of course. There's one artist I work with. He's gone now, but Robert Hunter, who was a lyricist for the Grateful Dead. And so a friend of mine who was doing a lot of the songs, you have the stuff printed on paper and you look at it and it's poultry right down the line. Of course, you're going to have repetition and the meter's going to change and stuff, but the stuff jumps off the pages as poetry, as a story. So it's just the dynamic in the meter that you're putting the words to that
Yeah,
seems
I
to be
agree. And the idea of repetition, just chiming in about that, that's one of my favorite things that I
mhm,
like to incorporate sometimes.
mhm,
It is just this idea of kind of repeating words or just kind of this. There's a couple poems that one of them I just had published that kind of used that repetition as kind of this
mhm.
factor of kind of, I guess, drilling the point home almost. But yeah, it can be really powerful to have that.
Well, it's also the dynamics of the performance, which you
Oh
have
yeah.
poetry, but certainly in music.
Hmm.
I guess there are some that are just static and straight across song performances. But
Yeah.
so anyway,
I
thank you
I
for inviting me.
oh sorry, Brian. I wonder as well though if some sometimes songs are more directive. Like there's a feeling and there's a story, but it's kind of a more. I feel like there's some universal emotions that come from songs, like well-written songs, that they're very directive of what the writer wants you to feel. And I feel like poetry perhaps allows more of a personal interpretation. I know we all interpret songs in different ways, but I wonder if that's some of the difference
Mhm.
as well, with the repetition and the kind of that hook that brings you in with the song allows you to experience that in a certain way, whereas poetry perhaps, or some forms of poetry, are more your own exploration is
Mhm.
what's happening.
Well, the reason I brought up Robert Hunter in that is that you could take out the choruses, which you could do in a lot of music pieces, and just read it for rote through there. And you have the rhythm and stuff, but then you don't have that repetition per se. And so that's why it's interesting. A number of your poems could be applied musically as well. So it's just an interesting observation on my part because I deal a lot with different nurses.
Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah,
I just wanted to expand on that. The same thought. I had a question earlier. I was going to ask a group, and Brian kind of took in a different direction, but I think it brings it right back. Is this idea of poetry that we as poets write, and then as we perform. And when I heard Kevin in particular, and actually Kathie and Carma as well, I mean, we 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 have a style, but Kevin in particular hit a point of emotional inflection that caused me to pay. If I was drifting or whatever, his inflection grabbed me and said, "Come back here. This is important." And I wonder whether your style, again, for all three of you, um, is a there. This is not slam poetry. This isn't performance in that sense, but you are in fact performing your poems. And when you think about that, how do you think about the performance or the read? Do you, and Kathie, you just said this, do you let people come in with their own interpretation, or do you guide them a little bit with your own inflection? I'm curious how each of you approach that.
It's definitely something I want to get better at performing. I feel like Kevin totally did what you said, where there's that emphatic performance of someone who knows their own work so well to know where to put the intonation and that emotion that was carried. Um, I think for me, when I'm reading someone's work, I do my own interpretation and I kind of, read it how I read it in my head. And then I absolutely love hearing people read their work because it illuminates something totally different for me, where I sometimes I can be reading something and just think, okay. And then you hear them read it and it's just got such meaning because it's all about the ways that we use our voice. So I think, yeah, for me, it's an art form that I haven't had that much practice in, and I definitely want to improve on. And I admire people that can deliver a poem so well.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference for me when I'm reading a poem on a page versus listening to it or watching someone perform a piece. And yeah, certainly I do not aspire to be a slam poet. I know that's just not me. I'm sorry, I'm getting over a cold, so I'm a little hoarse. But yeah, I want, like Kathie said, I want to get better at relating to an audience and not letting people drift, grabbing them and bringing them back in. And Kevin did a great job. And actually, Kathie, you had a very lovely way of presenting your work too.
Yeah, and Larry just added, I'm definitely a fan of Kevin's style, and I also think each one of you presented your work so well and with so much feeling. And I agree. I mean, that's the whole point. Uh, reading poetry out loud uh, in front of people. It is obviously it's a performance, but just like there are all kinds of acting styles, and there should be all kinds of acting styles, in my opinion. There should be all kinds of styles in delivering poetry and from over the top to like super super subtle. There's room for all kinds of styles, and whatever fits the poet best, that's what they should go with. And I also I appreciate how all three of you read with confidence. That's another thing that's really key, I think, for me when I attend poetry readings is if someone is reading with confidence, I'm there with them, no matter what style they present. And when poets, which I understand, they start a little bit apologizing for something or over explaining what they're about to read, that's when they tend to lose me personally. But yeah, it's absolutely another skill that poets hone, uh, performing their poetry for sure. And I'm going to keep reading the comments in the chat. Allie says, that's why I love the idea of audiobooks to go with the poem. You pick up different nuances when you read it visually versus listening, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, this is how we study. That's one of the good things about how poetry is taught, I think. And people always complain about how poetry is taught, but the one thing that I remember growing up, and I think hopefully it's still happening in classrooms, is reading poems out loud in the classroom. The teacher would read it, then you would read it too. I hope that's still happening. That was one of my favorite things in school. And and I actually, I mean, that's how we should be reading poetry that we pick up for our own pleasure and out of our own interest. I think we should be doing that more, just at home, reading. I do it sometimes, but yeah, that's they're meant to live in the body as well as on the page. All right. Any other questions? And it's people have had to leave also, so we're a smaller group now, but no worries if we've exhausted the question. That was super interesting. I'm glad this all also got recorded and will be a part of the video. And yeah, I mean, thank you again, Kevin, for thinking of this. Thank you to Karma and Kathy for agreeing to take part. Robin, setting everything up, and I'll see you around, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. It's been
Have a
a
great
blast.
evening.